Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production. Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 86, The Test of Time. This podcast is sponsored by GadgetFreeway.com. Check out their iPad pillow, iPad case bag, and all their other awesome iPad gear at GadgetFreeway.com. And until September 24th, 10% off on everything. So check it all out at GadgetFreeway.com. And I'd like to thank them once again for sponsoring this podcast. And we are here for this Sunday night live episode after a week of iPad mayhem with iPods released and all sorts of goodies. I'm here tonight with John. How are you doing, John?
Great, Tim. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's been a fun week. A lot of nice little news items and app updates, and the future of the iPad looks very great indeed.
Yeah, it definitely does. A lot of good stuff happening, and looks like there's more probably just around the corner.
Yep, definitely. So I want to start off the show with something I saw a while ago. It's AutoCAD, and I remember playing with AutoCAD in middle school and just being like, what the heck am I supposed to use this for? I think it was shop class or something, and they're bringing it back to the Mac after 18 years of being away. And they're also bringing, it's kind of similar to how, I guess, what's that one app that FileMaker? Yeah, FileMaker has their, Go app. They're going to bring,
right.
What was that again?
Yeah, that's exactly a good parallel to draw there, yeah.
Yeah, but this one will be free. So AutoCAD's going to have this iPad and iPhone app that'll be free as a companion that you're able to view, edit, and do small edits and share those files on your iPads and stuff. So that's a pretty cool market to have the iPad in.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's great to see AutoCAD coming back to the Mac. Years ago when it was out, I was a little involved at the periphery of some of this type of work, and I actually used it on the Mac a few times, and it's interesting to see it coming back. And certainly the iPad makes a great device to take that with you and go somewhere and make some slight modifications. I'm glad to see they're not trying to do full blown AutoCAD kind of production work on the iPad, because that would be not really the best device for that. But
that would be fun.
But it's great to hear that they're not only just providing something that you can view it with, but actually something that you could make some editorial tweaks to an existing file.
Yeah. And do you know the price? I remember it being high. Is it like $2,000 or is it $2,400? How much is the desktop version run these days?
I don't know what it runs these days, but it was always it's a very, very much a professional tool, and it was always very high end kind of thing.
Yeah, I know it's I looked at it, it's that's more expensive than the Adobe Creative Suite. It's wow.
Yeah, and it's certainly professional application.
Yeah, it gets the job done for that market. And what is it? Is it for engineers? Is that what it's for exactly?
Yeah, it's for it's essentially drafting, electronic drafting.
Mm-hmm.
What it is. So it's all the uses of drafting. So whether that be designing buildings or designing machine components or whatever.
Okay.
So it's these files all can typically, if it's a part that you're going to machine, you can actually take it out of AutoCAD and feed it into a computer-aided manufacturing machine, and it can just cut the part with the lasers and the robots and all that good stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
that's pretty
it's
awesome.
But that's what computer-aided design. So it's it's all about that. And
okay.
Big in the auto industry and everything else like that.
Yeah. And it seems that we'll have plenty more iPads for these engineers and architects to work with, as we now have 24-hour shipping for iPads. A couple weeks ago, it was 7 to 10 days on iPads. And the reason that this is believed to be is we're now in they're ramping up production, 3 million a month. It's not that they're selling less, it would seem. It's that they're now finally keeping up with demand at 3 million a month. So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see that, people aren't going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get their iPads, and so it becomes more of an impulse buy, which is a good thing for Apple. So definitely we're going to see that market continue to expand, and I don't think that they're going to have end up having weeks or months worth of stock on hand. I think the pace is probably going to continue at what it has been.
Oh, especially with this holiday season, this is going to be a very popular holiday gift or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just add this to the show notes. It might not be in your version yet, but I recently heard on another podcast about the Galaxy Tab, this 7-inch Android device. Supposedly.
Is that the one from Samsung?
I think so.
Yeah, I have heard about that.
And people are saying this is a big competition to the iPad, and I don't know about that. I'm not sure if Android's ready to actually compete yet. The OS itself is still designed for a phone. It hasn't been optimized at all. It'll still display mobile versions of websites, and the app ecosystem is just imagine the iPad. If all you could do was run iPhone apps on it, it would be terrible, right?
Yeah, although the interesting thing is this is an incredible what I'm trying to say, compliment to Apple and the iPad, because if you look at the video that is circulating around, this thing looks like an iPad. It looks so much, and it's smaller, but and it's certainly just kind of a surface thing. You're not really running the apps in the little videos, so you can't really see how the thing really functions. But from a very quick overview, it so much looks like an iPad, and it's like, okay, so you've now just validated everything Apple's done by saying that's the way to do things in this form factor.
And when I heard about it, evidently it's 7 inches, but that's a lot smaller, evidently, because you can actually fit 2 Galaxy Tabs on the top of an iPad, because of the way vertical and horizontal works, I guess. You can actually fit 2 of these on an iPad, so it's substantially smaller, even though it's 7 inches, which is kind of interesting, especially as we talk about the 7-inch iPad, meaning that iPad could actually, be half the size of the iPad we have now, even at 7 inches. It's kind of interesting to look at it from that angle too.
Definitely, and quite frankly, I saw the video, and the size is kind of compelling in many respects, but the operating system is not. So, it makes me kind of wish that the rumors about a smaller iPad are true or will be true at some point in time. Apple rumors a lot of them tend to become true after a period of time has gone by. But
I think January, right? That'll be Apple's next big thing. I don't know. I don't know what Apple has up their sleeve.
We'll see. But it is interesting, the little video, to see the iPod Touch and this Galaxy Tab and then the iPad, and see the 3 different sizes. So we'll see. But like I say, I think it just tells everybody, oh, Apple got it right.
Yeah.
Because that's what it looks like. I mean, it's so much like the iPad.
Yeah, exactly. And the next story we've got here is you found this one about the iPad being used more and more by businesses. Can you go into this one here?
Yeah, it's an interesting article in Computer World, and it's really talking about how doctors and lawyers and business people are kind of flocking to this device. And certainly I would say that I've seen evidence of this with lawyers. I think we've talked about it before, where it's a much easier device for a lawyer to use in a courtroom than a laptop sitting, kind of between him and the judge and the jury kind of thing. But these and doctors as well are really picking up on the fact that they need to be large consumers of information to do their job day in and day out. And so lawyers do part of their job is producing information, but a lot more of their job is absorbing that information and doing something with it, using it as a defense in a case or something. And so this iPad is just a great device to do that. And it's great for doctors to be able to get information. They're typically not producing a lot of information when they see a patient. They're trying to absorb all the information that's already been collected in lab tests and whatnot. And so for those type of professions, it's just becoming a great device to do that.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be a fun next couple of years to just see how much these different markets are shaped by, the iPad and similar devices, if we ever see the light of day of devices that can actually compete with this iPad. And I talked a while ago about the iPad and music. Did several episodes on different instruments, and a new instrument has come out that I still need to pick up and play with. And the iPad Orchestra, a quartet, has been formed out of this instrument. It's the C-Line HD app, and you found the story. And it's did you get a chance to watch the video? Is it a good performance?
I watched it briefly. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but it was certainly an interesting thing, and I immediately thought of you when I saw this. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that this is now what you've been kind of preaching for some months now is now actually kind of spilling over all over the internet. So it's really interesting. Yeah, they're playing a cello, a flute, a violin, and a clarinet, and all using iPads. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. They're wearing the shirt that says cello or flute, and it's a pretty cool thing. I think this will happen more and more, and the iPad will become more of a performance device and a creation device. As far as music and in education, even it's becoming more and more popular. My sister goes to Notre Dame, and she's always saying the iPad. I would never use that, and evidently her school is adopting the iPad in at least one class. This business class you discovered at the unofficial Apple weblog is using the iPad to replace textbooks, to take notes, and all that kind of stuff. And what do you think about this?
I think this is really kind of just what we're going to see more and more. The professor Corey Angst, who teaches this, he actually has a blog that I've read called Teaching with Angst. Play off his name there, but he's mentioned a lot of things that they've learned with the iPad in just a very short amount of time. One thing is it's really kind of a study on e-readers, but I think they're discovering that the iPad is that much more than an e-reader, and a lot of the students who didn't think that they were going to be much into it are finding out that they are into it and it's kind of interesting. They at least at this point in time don't have any set requirements to use the iPad. I mean, some of their course material is available on the iPad, but I think, if I'm not mistaken,
it's
video
available. He said you could use it as much or as little as you want, and I think they're using it the much way.
Yeah, and I think the students are taking to it. So it'll be an interesting when they kind of do an after action report at the end of the semester about what was the result of this. But
yeah, it's pretty cool because my sister goes there. It's like, haha, you don't like the iPad and it's being used in your classes, But it's being used in other countries outside of America, and there's been a lot of different podcasts that have actually interviewed people that are doing this kind of stuff. And one school you found is in Scotland, whatever.
Scotland, right? Yeah, and so this is an elementary school, I believe, or it's not quite. It's kind of spans a number of grades. It's a very small town, and students are from 5 to 15, and they apparently in the past year or so were forced to use a few laptops. Last year there was 105 kids and they had 12 laptops that they got to share. But now they've each been given an iPad to work on and using it the internet and YouTube video information for the classroom, and really just hooking kids into the whole technology thing. And it's quite frankly, what these kids need to be able to compete in the world that they're going to be in 10 to 15 years. So, it's a good thing to see. It's a good thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always interesting when schools adopt this kind of stuff because, I know it's going to be what is the next generation of textbooks and notebooks. It'll just be this one device. You don't have to bring notebooks to class and books to class and pens. And I'm just remembering back in school, we had this huge backpack that we had filled with all our different pens and highlighters, and you won't need that anymore. You'll just have your iPad. It's kind of an interesting revelation that we're just consolidating it all down to this one simple device.
Yeah, and I don't know that we'll ever get it down to one device, but certainly just the way that this is able to be pulled into education is going to be phenomenal for kids of the younger generation now.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to some app news. There's a couple stories here, some big app releases and updates here. The first is Pogo Plug HD. And Pogo Plug is that solution for putting your own hard drives basically online, accessible anywhere you have a internet connection. And they've came out with an iPad app that's free of charge. It allows you to access your files, stream video, audio, and also it allows you to print your files. And I'm guessing it prints on your local printer that it's hooked up with your Pogo. I'm imagining that's how it works, but it's a pretty cool app.
Yeah, I looked into this a little bit, and it's I'm not so much on the Pogo printer that would be hooked up, but actually a network printer. So if you have a network printer on the same network as your Pogo Plug, that you could then print to that network printer.
Right. Do you have it at Pogo, or have you played around with them at all?
I don't. I've read up about them and thought about buying them a few times. I tend to have my computer with me and don't have a whole lot of computing power left at home when I'm gone. But now that this works the way it does, and there is more and more times where I'm just taking the iPad and not the laptop, I may look into getting a Pogo Plug and doing this. And
yeah, it's like a one-time cost, $100, and then you have like your own Dropbox account, pretty much. I mean, sorta,
Sorta, yeah. I mean, you should still be concerned about obviously backing up somewhere other than your house, but it's a good thing that's just gotten better, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And interesting thing I ran across over at appadvice.com is they're doing a new Parallels, that virtual machine type stuff on the Mac later this year, I guess, or next year. And there's mention of a possible iPad app coming out. Now, this has me kind of confused. Does that mean we'll have Windows and Linux running on our iPads? Or I thought I'm pretty sure Apple would block that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's a good question. The article mentions the Parallel iPhone app, and I run Parallels, and I have the iPhone app, which is a free app, but it's not running anything on your iPhone other than controlling the Parallels app on your Mac.
Oh, okay.
And giving you some file access and basic control. So, if they were to do something more than that for the iPad, which I think they certainly could do. I mean, the iPad has, when they brought out their iPhone was, I think, in the time of maybe the 3G, maybe the 3GS, but it was still not the kind of power that we have in the iPhone or the iPad now with the chips that it has in now. So, it might be interesting. I bet, Windows XP could probably run on an iPad without any problem.
Oh yeah,
as far as horsepower.
Because Windows XP was around what, 2000 or 2001? When did that debut?
Well, I think Windows XP just had its 15-year anniversary, is what I seem to remember.
Okay, and I think the iPad is better than 15-year-old hardware.
Yeah,
just
I think
guessing,
I think it's probably faster than what people were using on their desktops 15 years ago. So yeah, so I think that it's probably doable, but I don't expect that Parallels is going to bring that out because we're not running an Intel chip in the iPad.
Yeah, it'd
And
be completely different
yeah, it would be
architecture.
a major issue to do that. Now, if they said that they're now going to provide something like a VNC kind of terminal to look at a Parallels app running on another machine, that would make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's all speculation at this point. It's just somebody said they saw some marketing stuff that mentioned iPad, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And a big app came out. If you're a Mac guy, or Mac lady, Plex is a pretty well known if you're someone that gets into multimedia and trying to use your Mac as a media center, Apple TV type device. Plex is a great way to manage your media and play back media and all that kind of stuff. And they had a huge update that included a universal iPad app for $5. So it runs on your iPhone too. That basically it just streams your media and all that good stuff from your Mac anywhere in the world. And the Mac update looks pretty cool as well. Have you got? Do you play around with Plex at all or multimedia?
I don't.
Stuff?
I've tried Boxy, which is kind of in the same vein, but
Yeah.
I have not gotten into Plex. Although I've read about it in the past and just never gotten around to checking it out. But so it's not really running Plex on the iPad. It's more.
Right.
As far as running your media on the iPad,
It's like
more,
Air Video for Plex users.
got it. Yeah.
I saw the screencast, at least the first part of the screencast by Don McAllister. He does screencast online. And the Mac version looks very, very nice, very polished. And I'd probably be using that if I wasn't so much an iTunes guy and Apple TV guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I actually, now that you mentioned Boxy, I actually hacked my original Apple TV. Now I found out that Apple's not updating it, so it's now running Boxy, which is kind of cool. I had MLB at bat on it, and it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, is this? Let's move on to the kind of a big free update here. Twitter for the iPhone came out a while ago, and we were all complaining, "Hey, there's no iPad app. Where is this?" And it finally came out, and is this your now preferred client for the iPad as far as Twitter is concerned?
Well, I was a Twitterific user, but because of all the changes with Twitter and the authorization and requiring me to go to the new Twitterific, which has some issues as far as what they've changed in it. I checked out Twitter. I heard that some people said it was really great, and I guess my judgment is I'm still haven't made my final judgment, but I am using Twitter now instead of Twitterific on the iPad, at least for the last few days, and I'm liking it. It's a unique interface. It's not necessarily completely intuitive.
No, I got a little confused when using it.
Yeah, but I actually like some of the stuff they're doing here with these kind of windows that are layers that kind of can slide over other windows, and it's interesting. So I'm gonna keep playing with it. I'm not using Twitterific right now. Don't even have it on my iPad because I haven't downloaded it for the iPad yet, but I'll probably try the new version. I did try that on the iPhone, and I was not particularly pleased with some of the changes. But
Okay.
one or the other one of those will probably be what I stick with, and the jury's still out.
Yeah, I tried this app and I liked it. It had some inventive things about the interface and all that, but I'm just still in love with Osphora HD, and I use Twitter for the iPhone, but the iPad app, it's great, but I don't want to relearn another way to use Twitter.
Yeah. I should probably try Osphora as well, but I haven't tried that one yet. I do, Twitterific does have all the different types of tweets, the direct messages and regular timeline and and whatnot all in one thing. I kind of like that. And I'm trying to get used to the fact that Twitter has them in different areas. Yeah, I am liking it with this kind of neat interface that they're putting forward here.
Can I share one big gripe I have with Twitter?
Please.
It is the fact that they still have not, implemented any kind of sync. So your unread stuff, it doesn't sync across any of the other apps or web at all. I mean, I still understand why they haven't done that. It's so annoying seeing the DMs all brand new when you get a new app. Or is that annoying you at all?
It's totally annoying. Totally annoying. I mean, I go from Mac to iPad to iPhone. And it's like, sometimes I get caught up in things and I won't open a Twitter client for like 2 days. Yeah. And so I know I have a huge number to go through. So I'll find myself, I'll be in a line or something and I'll fire it up on the iPhone and start going through them real quick and catching up. And then I turn around and I fire it up on the Mac or the iPad and I got all of them to go through there too. And yeah, it's just ridiculous.
They're using OAuth, so they're all logging in through Twitter. They can do this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that should happen. I'm sorry, Twitter. I love your service, but that's just annoying. So up next is what's up next, Sean?
So up next, 3D Cities is an interesting app. It came out. I think it just came out recently. I don't see here a date because I'm not looking at iTunes. But anyway, what this is all about is it's kind of using some of the Google technologies, I think. And besides just maps, it's actually giving you kind of skylines, 3D kind of rendering of cities. Yeah. Now, there aren't a great number of cities in it, but the big ones, New York, Portland. I don't know why Portland's in there. San Francisco, Boston, Washington, Chicago, Philadelphia, Austin. Not your city, not my city, but I actually happened to have been in San Francisco last week.
Oh, cool.
And I heard about this and I downloaded it and I was able to use it. And it's really phenomenal. It
looks like something from the Matrix or something.
Very much so. It's truly a unique thing. One thing I noticed about San Francisco was that I hear people all the time talk about different areas within the city, that have different names and stuff. And I never know where those are. Most maps don't show that.
Right.
And so this actually shows that. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I was able to kind of zoom in and see the city buildings around where I was. And it was just killer. And on a 3G iPad, it's a really neat app.
Even in San Francisco.
Even in San Francisco, which I have great AT&T coverage everywhere I've gone in San Francisco. I don't know why people that live there complain.
Yes. Well, we have had some very blessed news about our operating system that runs on the iPad. That indeed it is getting updated this November and hopefully next week for us developers. And it's 4.2. And the reason we're talking about it again after the event we did a show is Apple now has a page up, teasing us and, tempting us. It's like, what, about the update coming out, And some interesting things were revealed on this page. The first is they're actually doing this. They're doing the find text on web pages that you need to do a hack, a bookmark hack to do this right now. So in Safari, easily find and highlight special words and phrases on large web pages. So that's kind of cool.
Very cool.
And then a couple other things, accessibility enhancements, control voiceover using a wireless keyboard. So I guess you can turn it on and off with a wireless keyboard like you can on the Mac. You can actually output in Braille to over 30 supported wireless Bluetooth refreshable Braille displays in more than 25 languages. That sounds just really cool and advanced.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And keyboard and dictionary enhancements, more keyboards and dictionaries for folks who use other alphabets, Arabic, Greek, Hebrew, all great stuff as well to make this truly an international product.
Yeah. And we got a little bit more information about this wireless printing stuff, as far as will it just work in Pages or all that kind of stuff. So evidently it's going to work built into Mail, to Photos, to Web Pages, so Safari, I'm guessing, and more. So I'm guessing there will be an open API for this, but it's kind of interesting that you can do Web Pages, and I wasn't sure if they'd build that in Safari or not, and how they would work with formatting and different things. It'd be interesting if you zoomed into a particular part on a web page, if it would just print that out, because that'd be kind of cool, because that's kind of a hard thing to do right now on the Mac, just zooming into a certain spot and printing just that,
Yeah. So that'll be great stuff there. And of course, all the standard things that you get with iOS 4, the multitasking, the folders. And then there's AirPlay.
Yes,
what about
AirPlay? I'm excited about AirPlay. That's gonna be huge. I'm excited. I hope there's an open API for that. I'd be really excited if there was, because that means Hulu could be on a new Apple TV or one of the other AirPlay devices, out there. So that'd be pretty amazing.
Yep.
It basically, the $50 cord that Apple sells, you don't need it anymore. You can just get an Apple TV and cut down the cost there. It's the new video output.
Very cool.
So I have this question for you. It's very clear that Apple is moving the iPhone and iPad operating systems along at the same rate. 4.2 will be on both devices. They will both be printing. Does this mean the iPhone will become... the iPad's been often touted as not being the most advanced tablet. Will this then, since the iPhone's getting a lot of these tablet features, such as printing, make the iPhone just leap years ahead of anything on the Android? Because the Android's not going to be able to print stuff. It's not going to be able to do the other stuff that's going to come along with, having the same OS that a tablet does.
Well, I wouldn't say that those kind of features are going to be the differentiator between, the iPhone and the Android phones, because Android being so open, somebody's gonna put that in there. Somebody says, oh, well, people want to print from their phone too. Okay, well, we'll put it in there. Whether it be Google, which it probably won't be because they're slowing down their development, but it's so open that somebody else could easily put that kind of
would it be
feature.
More of a hack like it is on the iPad with apps that sort of work and sort of don't work?
Well, I don't know that it would be a hack. It would potentially be some kind of more of an extension, because remember, Android is for the most part open source. So even if Google isn't doing it, somebody else could potentially provide something that would be fairly integrated into the core of the OS. But the true thing is that Apple's going to do it the right way. If I can be a fanboy for a while,
yeah, sure, love that.
Apple is going to do it the way that the common person can understand it and use it, and you're not going to get that with Android. At least not in version 1, 2, or probably 3 of any kind of feature. With the Android, from what I've seen of it, and I'll have to admit I don't have much personal experience other than holding somebody's Android phone for a few minutes and playing with it, but it's done by very techie people for very techie people, and so consequently it tends not to be as intuitive as Apple stuff tends to be. So
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, my brother has Android, the Nexus One. I played around with it, and I don't get the appeal of Android other than it's open. That might be it. I mean, it's got some nice stuff. The voice to text is, of course, one of my favorite things it has, but that's the only thing on there that I really appreciate.
Yeah, so it's I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's there for not only for people I know who really get into that kind of thing from a technical standpoint, and it's really great to see innovation happening on that very open platform, and competition for Apple.
Yeah,
but
keep them on their toes.
I for one go back to what a lot of people say, including a lot of Mac proponents that when the iPhone first came out was that it's finally a smartphone that people can use 80 or 90% of the features instead of 10% of the features.
Yeah,
You know,
it's the first dumb smartphone, and any person can use it.
yeah, absolutely. Smartphone for idiots, myself included.
I'm
not being judgmental.
But before we get into the focus topic of the week, and that is, this test of time, topic we have here, is I want to just read a junk email I got that was just very clever that, I don't know, just kind of random email I got today, just kind of crazy and very well put together, but just kind of weird. Okay, so here's the subject. You will not believe what is happening at Best Buy right now. Spotty, I simply had to message someone about this and I figured you would be interested. Did you hear that Steve Jobs is in town? They are keeping it low-key because of the huge crowds it would cause. My friend who works there said they're giving away over 100 new iPhone 4s to the first people who show up after registering online. I think it's for some promotion they're having. I just left there and I'm sending this to spread the word. Go here. And it gives me a URL to something that looks legitimate, news6online.com/Best Buy promo, whatever. If it asks for your email address, then that means they still have some left. So I clicked on this, and it does not bring me to the URL it described. Instead, it brings me to a redirect page of track.prize.wave, some, one of those scams that try to make you do all these promotionals to get a free whatever. Right. And on the actual page, the image of the iPhone, it has AT&T 4G. It looks like a merging between the 3GS and the iPhone 4, and underneath it says OLED and 3.2 megapixel camera, which, so all the stats are wrong. So it's just kind of amusing. It's like, what the heck? Yeah. This is very creative email here.
So, interesting, but...
yeah, I just thought the show was like, wow, that's so random and just crazy. I don't know how it relates to Best Buy because there's no Best Buy information on that website at all. So anyways, let's move on to the focus topic of the week. And that is, we've had our iPads since, April 3rd for me. And you got yours, was yours in May? Or you got the Wi-Fi one to start out with, right?
Yeah, I got the Wi-Fi one April 3rd, and then I got the 3G later.
Yeah, so we're going to just go through basically our 10 most used apps, around 10, that have stood the test of time. We've used these apps day in and day out for months on end, and these are the ones that, stood the test of time. So do you want to start off with a couple of yours?
Sure. And let me just preface this by saying that my list, some of these I haven't been using for very long. They may have been out for a while, but for some reason I didn't know about them or didn't try them. But they are certainly ones that I use continually now and will into the foreseeable future be using. CalcBot is one of those. CalcBot hasn't been out all that long, and I don't know if I heard about it when it first came out or whether it had been out for a while. But when I saw it, when I heard about it, I went and got it, and I've been very, very pleased. It seems to me, at least out of all the calculators that I've tried on the iPad, it is the best. I like that it does a kind of a running tape, helps you figure out when you fat fingered a calculation. It does some really cool things with kind of algebraic notation and stuff. And, I think it's just a great calculator app. Along with that, I'll throw in 1Password, which I have been using since it was first available on the iPad. And I've been a 1Password user on the Mac forever and on the iPhone. And I should say it's 1Password Pro. Version
universal one.
The universal one. And I find that I'm constantly using that. It's just a killer app. I now find it on the iPhone with multitasking to be even better because I'm always in a website when I realize I don't know the password to that website.
Yeah,
and I can quickly jump out to it and jump back and I'm waiting for the multitasking on the iPad for that very reason. So
did you install the bookmarklet yet?
Yeah, I have used the bookmarklet before, and that works pretty well. But
True multitasking is better.
True multitasking is going to make it just as killer as it is on the iPhone. So I'll pass the baton to you, Tim.
Okay, very cool. Well, my first one is iTeleport, and I use this on a daily basis because I'm on the couch and my Mac is doing something I need to just quickly adjust or start a new task on, and I'll just remote into my Mac and do it. And I also have this set up on some of my clients' machines that I work with, and I'm able to remote into their machine on iTeleport to help them out doing tech support. So iTeleport is one I use on a daily basis, and it's crazy because I didn't use VNC stuff before the iPad came out, so that's kind of interesting. Osphora HD is my next one because I'm constantly in Twitter checking, for stories and just my regular feed or whatever, and so Osphora has become, my go-to Twitter app. I've got 4 installed on my iPad, but they're never open. They're just there for looking good, So Osphora is definitely the one that I use quite a bit. So, so what are your next ones here, John?
So a couple that I use every day that, the first one is Safari.
Yeah, that's not on my list. It should be.
I have a couple of the other alternative browsers on the iPad, and I use those occasionally. Mm-hmm. But in reality, I use Safari, 90+% of my browsing on the iPad, and it just works. It just works well. Most of my browsing, I don't need the other cool features of, having multiple windows open or having a little, scratch pad next to the window or something. Those are all great when you need those functions. It's great to have them. Mm-hmm. But, for most of my browsing, I'm just going from one page to the next and just finding information. So Safari works great and very stable. And then the other one, which I was a late comer to, but I'm now forced to log into it at least a couple times a day, is WeRule.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat addictive. I hit level 30 now,
okay,
and
awesome.
As soon as I get up to level 35 like you, I will probably abandon it because I'm somewhat resenting the fact that I feel like I have to go into it all the time.
Well, once you get to a certain level, John, where I'm at right now, I can do nothing, and I just automatically level up 5 levels when they push out the next update.
Okay.
I've reached a crazy point where I have $2 million in just reserve, so whenever anything comes out, I can just buy it. It's nuts.
Well, I'm not there, but I've been trying to follow your lead with the ruby trees and whatnot, and that's been very helpful. So.
Yeah, I think I make $100,000 a day on ruby trees and the Taylor guys.
Oh yeah, okay.
So yeah. Anyway, enough WeRule. I don't want to do a WeRule show again.
So what do you have next, Tim?
So my next one is Mail because it's a great client for Mail. I've got all my 8 or 9 email accounts on my iPad. And I'm really waiting for 4.2 for that unified inbox. That's going to be such a godsend and such a great thing that's on my iPod Touch and my iPhone, that unified mailbox. But I definitely use Mail, and I use that in combination with a text expander so I can have my different signatures. And I use that also to get documents and stuff into my iPad. I'll email PDFs and open them up in iBooks and different things like that. So I'm using Mail as a document importer too. And another way I get documents onto it and different things like that is Evernote. Evernote's another big one that I do the show notes this way. So I'll just sit down on the couch, lay out a show. I just use it all the time, So Evernote's definitely a big one for me. So those both are used on a daily basis, if not more than 5 times a day probably. So those are my next two. What do you have up your sleeve here?
Well, next on my list is certainly Mail, and I'm in Mail constantly, and I would love, as you say, to have that unified or universal inbox that I experience on the iPhone, and I miss it on the iPad, just because Mail is so much easier to do and nice to do on the iPad than on the iPhone. But jumping back and forth between a work email inbox, and my main personal inbox is something that I'm doing several times a day, and would like to have that. So, but Mail is still a killer app. I mean, it's a stable app. It works all the time. In fact, I've had some times where my personal email or my Exchange email through Entourage on the Mac gets hung up or can't connect or something, and I'm like, I know I'm getting an email coming in, and so I have to turn to the iPad
Yep.
and get the thing that is reliable all the time. So yeah, so Mail is certainly a great app there. And then iPod.
Oh, yeah.
I initially didn't use iPod much on the iPad. I have always used it very extensively on the iPhone, but now I'm starting to use it more and more. Partially, I think because of the greater battery life on the iPad, but also because I'm now trying to. Now that I have that nice screen, I'm actually looking at more video podcasts than I used to.
Yeah.
And so,
And the speakers are a lot better too, so that can help.
Absolutely. So what are your next two?
So yeah, iPod's not on my list, but I think it probably should be. Instead, I've got Pandora, because I'm finding, even though I've got like 30, 40 gigabytes of music probably stored on my iPad locally, I rarely use it. Instead, I just launch up Pandora and, listen to my different stations. And since it's jailbroken, I can run that in the background. And, sometimes it's just all that's open. But it's always running, at least probably 2 hours a day, minimum on my iPad. And I'll use Pandora, especially when I'm in iBooks. I've got this perfect Pandora station for reading, for background music, for reading. So I've got iBooks as my next one because I read, quite a bit. I've read, I don't know, probably 7, 8, 9, 10 books on the iPad already. And so I read a book, every night, or I try to at least. So that's a daily basis of reading. I aim to at least. And so those are kind of my next grouping of Pandora and iBooks, because they go right along with each other. They work well in combination, and 4.0 will definitely help that for non-jailbroken users.
Well, that's cool. I've used Pandora a few times, and I find it useful, particularly when I want to like get in the zone when I'm working or something. I don't have it on my list because I don't use it that much, but I like you, I think once I can multitask with it, I think I will probably use it quite a bit more than I do.
Yep.
But my next two are starts with Netflix, which I use quite a bit, particularly when I'm traveling, because sometimes, for instance, this last trip I took, the hotel room didn't have free internet access, and I didn't feel like paying $10 a night for it. So for what internet I needed to use, I had the 3G iPad, and I was able to run Netflix off of that. So I do use Netflix a great deal on many devices, including the iPad. And then one that you got me hooked on again, Paziz.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, they still have a sale going on. It's now back in the App Store. I think it's $2 an app now instead of 10. So they're doing this mayhem stuff right now as far as sales.
Yeah,
so every week it's $1 more. So
I just recommended to somebody today. Unfortunately, he doesn't have an iOS device nor a Mac currently. He used to have a Mac, but he doesn't. So I had to say, well, you need to go search for some other things for that antiquated platform that you have. Yeah, the Paziz, I've been using that more now on the iPad. I was using it a bit on the iPhone, but again, it's like, if I need to use that to help me sleep and run it for a couple hours on battery at night, the iPad is going to do that. And I use the alarm clock on the iPhone to wake me up. So I typically don't want something that's going to like potentially run down the battery overnight.
Yeah.
So the iPad is great for that. And as you pointed out earlier, great speakers. So that's very helpful.
Do you use Paziz has a built-in, alarm. Do you end up using that at all, or you stick with the iPhone?
I tried that once, and I didn't find it very good. I don't don't recall exactly what I didn't like about it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'm just used to the iPhone's alarm.
Do you do the death awake alarm where it's I don't know what alarm do you use for your iPhone?
I don't even recall what it's called. It's something rather
Alarming.
no, actually rather gentle.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a fairly light sleeper, and so I can wake up.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if that was it because I know I wake up with Pizziz with their alarm, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, I may try it again, but I've just kind of been
Make
using
sure
the
you
old
wake up.
standby. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
What do you have?
So my the next one is OmniFocus for me, and I use this on a daily basis still. It's good it just came out, but I'm still using it, and I use it on my iPhone and my iPad. It's open pretty much all day as I'm working. And I've talked about OmniFocus in very detail, so I don't want to go into why it's amazing. Check out one of my earlier episodes on that one. And then my next one is Pizziz, and I've got both versions. I've got the nap and the sleep one because I take a 15 minute nap every day before I go in the work at night. And when I go to bed at night, I use their sleep version. And the cool thing with the iPad is I've got a nice little speaker setup, and I use that camera connection kit and optical audio, and it's just beautiful Pizziz through the speakers. And use the alarm and everything with that, and it's just a great way to go to bed and get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I've used the Energizer version of that as well. For again, I don't necessarily sleep really well when I travel, and so if I've been gone for a few days on a trip, I'm starting to lose that edge in the middle of the day. And if I can find some quiet place to put in some headphones and kind of lean back in a chair for 15 minutes, at lunch or something, I can use that Energizer, and it really does give you a little extra boost for the afternoon. So
yeah, I remember in college there was this amazing couch in in one of the academic buildings, and I had at that time an iPod Nano or Shuffle. I think it was the Shuffle, so I just had the second gen Shuffle. It was clipped onto my headphones. I just, used Pizziz and just passed out for like an hour with their wonderful audio that they provide in that. It's a cool, definitely a cool app that I recommend everyone pick up. So what are your next two here?
So next on my list is iBooks. So, again, iBooks seems to have won out for me on as far as an e-reader. And I've been reading on it almost daily for months now. So I do find that I prior to that, I would, I'd read a little when I go to bed or whatnot, but I would often, forget where I put the book or, if I went on a trip, I wouldn't have brought the book with me. So I'd be, saying, gee, I wish I could read that story. But
the cool thing, sorry to interrupt, but the cool thing is, I'm reading a lot of just not fiction stuff, but nonfiction and, different types of books. And I'm actually reading 4 books at the same time because you can just go, press a button, you're in another book. It's
very cool. Yep.
Super convenient for that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm definitely using iBooks more. I wish the airlines would make me turn it off when I take off.
They still do that. That's
yeah. Well, they want your full attention. Although
they don't make Kindles too.
Excuse me?
Do Kindles and Nooks have that same turn it off?
Yeah, you're supposed to turn all that stuff off, but
okay.
The unfortunate thing is they don't make you put down your paper book.
Yeah, that's more distracting.
Well, it's only the electronic devices because they're supposedly going to interfere. But
yeah. Anyway,
I don't. Anyway. So the other thing is early edition, which we've talked about on the show before. Great newsreader kind of functionality. So I use that probably 4 out of 7 days at least, if not more. Just a quick way to catch up on some of the top interesting stories from a variety of places. So
okay, cool.
What about you?
Well, my final two are going to be ending with the entertainment field here. So my final two actually contain 5 apps. So the video realm, I am using on a daily basis Air Video, Hulu Plus, and Netflix. And Netflix is awesome for my movies. Hulu Plus is awesome for my quick, TV show. And Air Video is awesome for everything else. And interestingly, that ABC app that's installed on my iPad is not really used that much because it's all served through Netflix or Hulu Plus. And that was kind of interesting to find out that ABC is great that they have that, but it's just not necessary anymore. Have you found that as well?
Well, I don't have Hulu Plus, so
okay.
But I can certainly see where you're coming from. Yeah, I haven't been using the ABC app much either. Primarily because the shows that and the shows that I want to watch I've probably already seen. So
yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely see that that's becoming less and less a thing for you with Hulu Plus, and I keep thinking that I need to get that, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, you can wait till October when all the seasons are up and running. September we're still waiting for the shows to start, so it's. But so those are my 3 video apps that are on there that I use pretty regularly. And my final 2 apps are We Rule and the newly created We Farm, because those are open too many times. That's embarrassing. But yeah, if you want to find me on either of those platforms, We Rule or We Farm, my username is Possibilities10. So the numeral 10. So I'm advancing quite well in We Farm. It's a fun little game.
Very cool, very cool.
So what are your final 2 here?
Well, my final 2, and I went first, so it's unfair that I'm going last. But
how'd that work out?
I had quite more than 10, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
So I also have like kind of 4.5 for my final 2. So ever since I've gotten the 3G iPad, I find that I'm using It's On My Way, Maps, and Navigon. All are great navigation tools on the iPad. 2 of them are not really iPad apps yet, but they're still very, very useful and very good tools to have on a 3G iPad.
Definitely.
And then after that, it used to be Twitterific.
Twitterific, yeah.
Twitterific. But now it's kind of Twitter, as we spoke about earlier, the changes and releases of those apps. So that's about it.
Very cool. Well, as we were going through that, I went and highlighted the ones that we shared in common, and there were quite a bit. So let's just recap here. The ones John and I both, still use on a daily basis are Mail, iBooks, Pizziz, Netflix, and We Rule. So I think those are our shared amazing apps or whatever.
Yeah, and I bet if you asked most iPad users that have been using it for a little while to name their top 10, they would at least have a few of those in there, if not all of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Pizziz is an interesting case with ours.
Maybe not Pizziz, but certainly the others. I think most users are using iBooks frequently.
Yeah, if they're a reader, at least.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Definitely.
And Netflix, I think, is if you have an account and you have an iPad, you're going to be using the app.
Yeah, I think I'd love to hear Netflix do some sort of. I wonder if they know how many new users they're picking up because of the iPad. That'd be an interesting statistic to see how much their business has changed because of this one device.
Yeah, would be interesting.
Because it's just interesting. I don't know, because I think a lot of people have just picked it up because of this iPad release, So let's move away. These are those are the test of time apps that are, tried and true, But before we get to the picks of the week, I have one announcement from Elgato. I contacted them about their ITV stuff because I'm trying to figure out, is Hulu the best way to go? Is Netflix the best way to go? So I contacted Elgato. They make ITVs. Basically, I'm getting the ITV HD from them as for a review unit. It's basically a box that hooks into your cable box that hooks into your Mac and allows me to stream live TV similar to a Slingbox to my iPad, and also record stuff and all sorts of things. It records an iPhone and iPad at the same time. It's got some cool things like that. So I'm getting that on Tuesday, hopefully, if shipping all goes correctly, and I'll have a lengthy review and just let you guys know if this is a good product for iPad users to consider for their TV usage instead of Hulu, perhaps. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I've used some of the Elgato equipment in the past, and I have one of the earlier television boxes for the Mac,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I would say it's probably one of the better ones for the Mac.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited because I've got their, I use their Turbo H264 HD, and I've got the other video converter one, and so I'm kind of interested to see with this TV stuff because I've never been much of a TV guy. I've been a Hulu and Netflix guy my whole life, so it'll be fun to play with this. I think this might convert me over to a TV user once again because I'll finally have it on my iPad, So
yeah, it'll
cool.
be interesting to see how it kind of compares with Apple TV and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's the first announcement. The next one is we're doing a game giveaway. We've got what do we got? 2 or 3 of these promo codes?
Three.
Okay. And what's the name of the application again?
It's FCU.
Okay.
Which stands for Fighting Chicks Unlimited, and it's just a fun little iPad game that's available in the App Store. So if you don't win one, you'll need to go out and buy one.
Very cool. And yeah, I actually paid for this one. It's like, this looked pretty cool. Let me pick it up and played around with it. And it's very well coded and everything. And I had quite a bit of fun with it. So it's not your serious type of game or serious type of application, but it's a fun little game to have. So
yeah, and it's probably not going to make your top 10 of your iPad that you use all the time, but it's puts a smile on your face when you play it.
Yeah, definitely. So it's $1 in the App Store, and initially I had a hard time finding this. So it's called Fighting Chicks Unlimited. So if you type for FC in the App Store, you won't really find it. So Fighting Chicks Unlimited is what you need to search for if you want to buy it. But the first 3 people that email iPadPossibilities@gmail.com with subject line, I want FCU, you'll get the copy, or one of the 3 copies here. So very cool. Thanks, John, for sending that all
That's
up.
good to know, Tim, that it doesn't show up under FCU. I'll have to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're able to change I don't know how the keywords or metadata is done to change that or whatever, or have the title Fighting Chicks Unlimited, parentheses, FCU is the name or whatever, or how you change it around. So
have to find out about that.
So cool. Let's get on to the picks of the week here.
Alrighty. Well, I put 2 that we've already talked about as my picks.
Yeah, we've had a lot of picks already today.
Yeah. So the next up, 3D cities. If you are in one of the cities that has map coverage in it and you have an iPad, I would say, or an iPhone, I think it's a universal app. I would say go get this thing. It's free, and take a look at it, and it's interesting. And then the second pick is FCU, Fighting Chicks Unlimited. So fun little app. All right.
And I wanted to pick one that we didn't really talk about today. And I was planning to put this in the show notes because I thought it was a cool app to talk about. But I decided, hey, let's just wait till the picks. And so Mac Life is a magazine and a website that I used to subscribe to a couple of years ago. And I have since drifted away from their subscription and have not really gone to their website as much just because I found everything I needed elsewhere. But they're kind of back in the game here for me with this new iPad app. It's basically a really well-designed magazine, with web integration type stuff. Mac Life, Tablet Edition was it's called, and it was completely free. I'm not sure if they're just going to release this free every week or how they're going to do it, but it's pretty awesome as far as if you're a Mac guy, an Apple guy that wants to stay up to date and get reviews on the latest gear. Mac Life Tablet Edition is a great app to have.
And is that just in the App Store, Tim? Or
Yeah,
is that,
it's one of the featured apps, I guess, this week. It's just search for Mac Life. It's the tablet edition. It's completely free, and it was very well designed. Took a while to download. I'm not sure how much is being stored locally, but it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Excellent.
Did you ever subscribe to Macworld or Mac Life at all?
Yeah, I subscribe to a number of them at different times, and it's with the advent of the internet, more and more that was something that you get online, and so. But
Mac Life was originally called Mac Addict when I subscribed. They did a name change. Yep,
I remember that.
Yeah, that was a big deal. It's like we're all upset because we're addicts if we like the Mac. You can't just be a typical user anymore.
Yeah. So very cool. I'll have to download that. There was one other one that I wanted to mention just because of its timeliness, and that is there's an app called Hurricane HD.
Oh, that is timely.
Which helps you track. I think it's $3.99, not inexpensive for an app, but if you live in areas that are going to be threatened or are being threatened by hurricanes, might be worth $3.99.
Yeah, so it would be good to know if your house is going to be there when you get home.
Yeah, and just know when to leave your house.
Yeah.
So. Check
Very
it out
cool.
if it fits your demographic.
Yeah, it's a good app to have. Not if I'm in Indiana, but if I'm in Virginia or New York or wherever it's hitting, good app to have.
Yeah.
So as always, feedback is greatly appreciated. I've been getting more and more of that, and I'd love to get even more. You can call in to 209-542-iPad. Or you can email me at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. Send your questions if you want me to do a show on a particular topic. Let me know about it because I'd love to do user-based shows and just feedback shows. So love to do that. That's 209-542-4723. Just call in, leave your voicemail message. And so that's how you leave feedback. And John, where can people find you on the interwebs before we?
Just check out Jay Finnan on Twitter and look for me there probably.
Okay, awesome. And if you want to support this podcast, the best way to do that is to visit gadgetfreeway.com. And they are the sponsor of this podcast. And a very cool thing, up until September 24th, so we're in the month of September, 20 more days or so, 10% off on everything on there. And they've got some mainstream stuff from, OtterBox if you want some of their cases. But they also have their specialized stuff, such as their iPad case bag, which I use when I'm out and about. And, it never fails to amaze me. Every time I go to an Apple store with that, their staff always asks me about it. And, the iPad pillow and all sorts of stuff. I'm actually getting in the mail pretty soon here. They've got 2 different, pocket-sized Bluetooth keyboards for the iPad that I'm going to be trying out and doing a full review on. So if you want to support the show and get some good gadgets and stuff at the same time for your iPad, just go to gadgetfreeway.com, and I'd like to thank them once again for supporting this podcast. So with that, this has been the iPad Possibilities Podcast with Tim and John. And just have a great iPad week, and I'll talk to everyone again for the Wednesday, Thursday show later on.